Chapter 285. Their surroundings became hot and dry. The man's eyes were deep, like a bottomless abyss with a burning breath. His gaze was like silk, entangling Xunyu little by little. Xunyu also became hot. The crimson color crawled up her fair skin. Her skin that was as translucent as snow was dyed red, making her appear even more alluring. Xunyu's heart was filled with an indescribable nervousness. He knew what Shang Junlin's words meant. Even if he hadn't experienced it personally, he had read a lot about it in novels. The man had already lifted his chin and leaned over to kiss him. The kiss interrupted Xunyu's words. The man's actions were gentle. It wasn't the first time they had been so intimate. Xunyu adapted well and responded meekly. Xunyu's response was the best catalyst. Shang Junlin threw away his last scruples and hugged him tightly. If you can't accept it, just say stop. Shang Junlin ended the kiss and gently stroked the young man's cheek. His actions were in sharp contrast to the bright flames burning in his eyes. Xunyu nervously grabbed the hem of his clothes. Ding-ling-ling, the sound of the bells surrounded them, composing a moving song. The bed curtain fell and the red candles were burning. The light and shadow swayed, and the bells rang intermittently throughout the night. When he woke up the next day, the sky was already bright. Xunyu turned over and tried to sit up. He didn't know where he pulled, but it hurt so much that he gasped. Uncomfortable? The man's low and pleasant voice sounded in his ear. Xunyu didn't want to talk to him. Last night, he begged him to stop several times. The other party agreed, but in the end, his actions became worse and more ruthless. Shang Junlin supported his head with one hand and looked at the young man who was throwing a tantrum with his back facing him. His expression was full of satisfaction. He reached out and pulled the young man back into his arms. The young man tried to dodge, but he couldn't. He could only let the man hug him. Are you angry with me? Shang Junlin leaned close to the young man's ear and said gently. As he spoke, his hot breath sprayed on the sensitive earlobe. The pink color spread, and Xunyu's body unconsciously trembled. The man chuckled and sucked her earlobe into his mouth. Let go of me. Xunyu reached out and tried to push the man away. The exposed wrist was covered with red marks and teeth marks. Shang Junlin's eyes darkened. He still remembered how he had imprinted these marks on it. Letting go of the earlobe that had been bullied enough, Shang Junlin grabbed the hand that came to him and kissed it lovingly. I saw you this morning and you didn't get hurt. If you really don't feel well, I'll get the imperial physician to take a look at you. No need. Xunyu buried his face in the quilt and said in a muffled voice. Zhen got what he wanted, so it's inevitable that he's a little excited. Don't be angry. It won't happen again. Shang Junlin hugged her and coaxed her gently. What he said was the truth. In that situation, he couldn't control himself to stop. He just wanted to tear her apart and swallow her whole, never to be separated again. It was Xunyu's first time experiencing this kind of thing. What he encountered was a ferocious beast that was extremely hungry. Now that he finally got what he wanted, wouldn't it eat him up completely? Are you thirsty? Drink some water first. Xunyu felt that it was okay. When he was half awake, the man seemed to have used his mouth to pass him some water. Now, there was still some sweetness in his mouth. The water was prepared early in the morning. Shang Junlin brought it over and supported Xunyu to lean on his body to feed him the water. Xunyu drank the water from Shang Junlin's hand and licked the water stains on his lips. The water is sweet. I added honey. Shang Junlin put down the cup, lifted Xunyu's chin, and kissed him. Why did you? Xunyu's mouth was still a little painful from being kissed. He was still angry and was kissed by the man again. So, he pushed him hard. Shang Junlin kissed him for a while before releasing him. Zhen only kissed you. What did you think Zhen was going to do? The young man's cheeks were red, and the corners of his eyes were dark red. He glanced at the man and said, Your Majesty has no credibility in my heart. It's Zhen's fault. Shang Junlin actively admitted his mistake. As for whether he would change or not, that was another matter. It's very late now. Your Majesty, don't you need to go to court? Shang Junlin was a good and responsible emperor. Shun Yu had lived in the palace for so long, and he always went to court on time. He never slacked off. When he woke up today, he was already there. It had been so long, but he didn't show any signs of leaving. Shun Yu couldn't help but be curious. Did he not plan to go to court? Would the ministers be dissatisfied? The more Shun Yu thought about it, the more he felt that this was not right. If the other party didn't go to court because of him and caused the ministers to be dissatisfied, wouldn't it be his fault? He adjusted his position in the man's arms and placed his hands on the man's chest. He looked up at him seriously and said, "Your Majesty, you can't not go to court because of pleasure. It's not good." When did Jin say that Jin didn't go to court? Shang Junlin looked at the young man who was seriously persuading him and laughed in his heart. At this time, the court has already finished. Don't worry. Even if it's for a Yu, Jin will not become a fatuous emperor who doesn't go to court because of a beauty. Jin can't bear to let a Yu be criticized by the world because of Jin. Shun Yu was ashamed and angry that he had made such a big mistake. He buried his head in the man's arms and refused to lift it up no matter what. Shang Junlin looked at the young man's ears that were dyed red, and his heart felt warm. He dug out the young man who was avoiding the truth from his arms and said, "Good are you, Jin won't laugh at you. Why are you hiding? Jin is happy that you are worried that Jin is not doing his job. Then you didn't sleep at all? Last night, he was a god, but he couldn't stand such a crazy thing. The other party was just a mortal, how could he be so energetic?" Shin Yu couldn't figure it out. There was nothing to do in the morning court today. Jin came back to sleep for a while after the court. "I woke up not long before you woke up." Prince Li's matter had been solved. The evidence was conclusive, and he had committed a monstrous murder. No one dared to exonerate him. During this period of time, there was nothing else to do in the court. Shang Junlin announced the news of his wedding during the morning court. He remembered Shin Yu, who was in the palace, so he didn't care about the reaction of the courtiers and directly announced the end of the tide. The news of the emperor's wedding had been revealed some time ago. The courtiers weren't surprised. Combined with the emperor's actions during this period of time, they could see that the emperor was determined to do this. Shang Junlin didn't want to waste time in the morning court. He hurriedly finished the morning court and returned to the palace. Shin Yu hadn't woken up yet. Looking at the sleeping face of the other party, Shang Junlin changed out of his court clothes and went back to sleep with the other party in his arms. Shin Yu was, after all, a god. He recovered relatively quickly. After a day, the discomfort had subsided. The marks on his body had also dissipated a lot. Shang Junlin looked at the fading marks and really wanted to reprint them. But he also knew that he didn't know how to control himself the first time. He had to give Shin Yu some time to recover. With the breakthrough of their intimate relationship, Shin Yu and Shang Junlin got along even better. No matter where they went, as long as Shin Yu was willing, Shang Junlin would bring him along. The drought was completely solved. It wasn't known when it started, but rumors began to spread among the people that the drought was solved because the heavens were dissatisfied with Prince Li and Xu Daozhang's evil deeds. The messenger was now in the palace and was about to tie the knot with the emperor. The two of them were destined to be married. One of the reasons the messenger appeared in Da Huan and solved the natural disaster there was to keep the appointment with the emperor. So miraculous. Is it true? Someone questioned. Of course it's true. Otherwise, why didn't the messenger go to other countries? Why did he come to Da Huan? Da Huan isn't the only country suffering from drought this year. I heard that the messenger first appeared in Mount Shi. Before that, there were no traces of the messenger's existence in the world. Some officials in the court didn't believe it and sent people to investigate. Indeed, they couldn't find any traces of the messenger's previous life. This can't be fake. The news spread, and the people were looking forward to the wedding. The officials also felt that it was inconceivable. They didn't believe the words of the people at first, but the results of the investigation made them believe it. The imperial preceptor, the prime minister, and other officials didn't object at first. Was it because they received the news in advance? Since he has such an identity, why didn't he tell us in advance? He made us wait for the memorial. I don't know if it will make the messenger unhappy. Under Shang Junlin's arrangement, the voices of opposition disappeared. With the celebration of the entire nation, the day of the wedding finally arrived. It wasn't the coronation ceremony, but the wedding of Shang Junlin and Shen Yu. On the day of the wedding, the officials saw the real face of the rumored messenger for the first time. It was no wonder that they didn't know. The emperor was too protective. Many officials felt that if it wasn't for this wedding, they might never see the messenger's face. After seeing the messenger, no one doubted Shen Yu's identity anymore. There was no other reason. Shen Yu's appearance was too convincing. With his white hair reaching the ground and his otherworldly temperament, he suddenly looked like an immortal. Some people would even believe that he was a real god. As one of the few people who knew the real identity of Shen Yu, the imperial preceptor once asked the emperor why he used the name of the messenger. Shang Junlin told him that it was decided after discussing with Shen Yu. On the one hand, Shang Junlin didn't want Shen Yu to be disturbed. On the other hand, the real name of the god couldn't be known by too many people. Until the end of the wedding, everyone only knew that the one marrying Shang Junlin was the messenger sent by the heavens. As for the other party's name and other information, they didn't know anything. On the day of the wedding, Shen Yu and Shang Junlin both changed into red wedding clothes. Both of their appearances were outstanding. When they stood together, they looked very compatible. The imperial preceptor participated in the whole process of the wedding. It was different from the previous weddings of the emperor and the empress. This wedding had some ancient rituals. After all, this was a wedding between a god and a human. As the officiator of this wedding, the imperial preceptor was very excited. After he finished reading the congratulatory words, the auspicious signs from the heavens enveloped Shen Yu and Shang Junlin. Those who witnessed this wedding no longer had any thoughts of questioning Shen Yu's identity. After the wedding, Shen Yu's life didn't change much. Other than having to deal with Shang Junlin, who was in high demand, Shen Yu himself also enjoyed the feeling of intimacy with his lover, so he didn't think much of it. After the wedding, it seemed to prove that Da Huan was blessed by the heavens. Under the leadership of Shang Junlin, Da Huan developed better and better. Its territory expanded, and its national strength became stronger and stronger. 10 years later, Shang Junlin selected an excellent child from the imperial clan to be his successor. 15 years later, Shang Junlin gradually let go of his power. Every year, he would take Shen Yu to tour the mountains and rivers. 25 years later, a new emperor ascended the throne. Shang Junlin and Shen Yu disappeared in front of the people. Some people said that they had seen the two figures in the beautiful mountains and forests. Some people also said that they had seen the white-haired immortal on the top of the snowy mountains. However, there was no trace of the other person beside him. 100 years passed in a flash. Shen Yu sent his lover away and returned to Mount Shi alone. Once again, he walked through the place where they first met. When Shang Junlin was still on the throne, he ordered that everything here should remain the same. After the new emperor ascended the throne, this order was upheld. Therefore, when he revisited the old place, everything was the same as before. Shen Yu looked at the blooming flowers. It was as if he had returned to the day when they first met. Shen Yu had never told Shang Junlin that he was awakened by him. After so many years, he had also thought of keeping Shang Junlin. However, even if he was a god, he could not change the lifespan of a mortal at will. If he forced it, he would be punished by the heavens. He could force people to stay for a while, but he could not force people to stay for a lifetime. Without Shang Junlin, there was nothing in this world that could attract him. Shen Yu returned to this place just to take a look at the place where they first met. His eyes were slightly closed. A steady stream of power was emitted from the handsome god's body and fed back to the world. "What are you doing?" A man's urgent voice sounded behind him. Then, Shen Yu fell into a familiar embrace. "Sorry, I'm late." One kiss after another fell on the young man's face and neck, with a strong sense of comfort. "Why are you so stupid?" Shang Junlin was scared when he thought of the scene he saw when he hurried over. Shen Yu was actually dissipating the power of the origin. Was it because he was no longer here, so he used this method to force himself into a deep sleep? Gods would not die. However, once they lost their power of the origin, They would fall into a deep sleep and would not know when they would wake up. They might also disappear from the world during their deep sleep. Shang Junlin did not dare to imagine if he had been a step late. Fortunately, he had rushed over as fast as he could. Shang Junlin hugged the white-haired immortal tightly in his arms. He was very distressed. Shen opened his eyes. The familiar handsome face came into view. Shen hugged him tightly and could not wait to kiss him. "Don't be afraid. We will never be separated again," Shang Junlin replied gently and patted his back to comfort him. "Why are you?" Shen Yu's voice choked. "It's all thanks to you that I finished my tribulation in advance." Shang Junlin hugged him and roughly explained the cause and effect. Shen Yu could not listen to this now. "Are you really back?" "Yes. From now on, even if you does not want me, I will not let go." Shen Yu rubbed against the man's arms. "I will not abandon you." Under the bright moon, the two loving figures hugged each other tightly. There was nothing in this world that could separate them. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bk50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, mbk50. CC. Chapter 286. In the hallway, the agent strode to catch up with the young man in front. "Brother Shen, are we just going to let this go?" "What do you mean by let it go? Do you think I'm the kind of person who will swallow the bitter pill?" The young man in front paused and took off his sunglasses, revealing a pair of flirtatious foxy eyes. The young man had a very outstanding face. Even though the agent often saw it, he was still dazzled by it. He was indeed the top god of the entertainment circle. With just a face, he could attract countless fans. But now, your endorsements and scripts have all been secretly manipulated by the company and given to Ju Qing. It's the former company that is about to terminate the contract. Shen Yu corrected the agent. "Okay, the former company. What do you think the people in that company are thinking? They didn't support you, who had a bright future, but supported Ju Qing, who is inferior to you in every aspect." The agent became more and more indignant. Since the beginning of his career, he had been guiding Shen Yu. Not to mention other things, Shen Yu's face alone was enough to make him thrive in the entertainment circle. Not to mention Shen Yu's natural acting skills. All the directors he had worked with said that he was born to be in this industry. In the beginning, the company had indeed poured its resources into Shen Yu. Because of Shen Yu, a mediocre agency had become one of the hottest companies in the industry. Just when everyone thought that the two sides could continue to maintain a harmonious and friendly relationship, Ju Qing's appearance broke everything. Hearing the agent's words, Shen Yu's mouth curved into a smile. Isn't the reason obvious? Ju Qing hooked the new boss's heart and gave him whatever he wanted. It's just a few resources. It's not troublesome at all. Shen Yu wasn't someone who would be bullied easily. After knowing that the resources that should have belonged to him were secretly manipulated and given to others, he directly complained to the higher-ups of the company. The new boss felt that he had lost face and said that unless he was willing to admit his mistake, he wouldn't accept any jobs for the time being. It was equivalent to directly freezing him. "I'm afraid it's not just that. He wants to use this to force you to submit." The agent looked at the young man's face and sighed heavily. In the entertainment circle, with such a face, it was good to be successful, but it would also bring a lot of trouble. Is the new CEO really trying to support his new lover? But that wasn't necessarily the case. He just wanted to take out his anger on Shen Yu because he failed and was taught a lesson instead. Fortunately, Shen Yu's contract was about to expire. They still had a way out. "Hello, are you Mr. Shen and Mr. Wang?" A young man in a suit walked over. "Yes," the agent replied. "I'm Mr. Shang's secretary. My surname is Du. Please follow me." Secretary Du led the two of them to the private elevator that led straight to the top floor. Along the way, the manager was extremely nervous. They had come here because they had no other choice. Shen Yu's original company, Fengshang Entertainment, had a lot of say in the industry. They said that no one dared to take the risk of offending Fengshang Entertainment to take over Shen Yu, only Xingyao. Xingyao was a new entertainment company that had risen in the past 2 years. Backed by the Shang Corporation, even if it was a new company, No one dared to provoke them. After all, as one of the leading enterprises in the country, the Shong Corporation wasn't something that anyone could afford to offend. Needless to say, the Shong Corporation had always been cooperating with the country. They were involved in a wide range of industries. No one would be stupid enough to provoke such a giant. In the elevator, Secretary Du quietly sized up Shen Yu. He remembered that he was Mr. Shong's special assistant. This Mr. Shong didn't refer to Xing Yao's CEO, but the entire Shong Corporation's CEO, Shong Junlin. Xing Yao had been established for 2 years. It had always been managed by Shong Junlin's cousin. Shong Junlin rarely asked about this company, until Shen Yu's incident happened. The news that Shen Yu was being harassed by Fengshang Entertainment wasn't a secret in the circle. After Shong Junlin knew about it, he asked Xing Yao to extend an olive branch to Shen Yu's agent. He also specifically told him that if Shen Yu came, he should bring him to see him directly. Therefore, the person who appeared in Xing Yao's CEO's office today wasn't Xing Yao's CEO, but Shong Junlin. Secretary Du didn't know what his boss was thinking, but when he saw Shen Yu for the first time, he knew that this was an existence that could make countless people go crazy. The elevator stopped, and Secretary Du led him straight to the largest office area. Knock knock. The office door was knocked regularly. Come in. A man's deep and majestic voice came from the office. Secretary Du pushed the door open and made an inviting gesture. Shen Yu and his agent stepped into the office. Seeing the man sitting behind the desk, Shen Yu was stunned. He had seen Xing Yao's CEO before. Obviously, the man in front of him wasn't. Compared to his impression of Xing Yao's CEO, this man was younger and more handsome. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. His facial features were well defined. Under his chiseled face, he gave people a sense of distance. This is. His agent also noticed that something was wrong. It's Mr. Shong, the CEO of the Shong Corporation. Secretary Du explained. I have understood Mr. Shen's situation. Mr. Wang, you can talk to Secretary Du about the cooperation. The man said in a cold tone. Mr. Wang, please come with me. Secretary Du led the dazed agent to the next room. Compared to his agent, Shen Yu's performance was much calmer. After looking around, Shen Yu walked to the desk, put his hands on the desk, and looked down at the man. Mr. Shong, you asked me to stay alone. Do you have something to say to me? Or, you promised to help me. What do you want from me? Shen Yu never thought that there was a free lunch in the world. After being in the entertainment industry for a long time, this sentence was even more true. After he fell into a low point, it wasn't that no one had offered to help him, but these people had obvious motives. If it was so easy to give in, Shen Yu wouldn't have gotten himself into such a situation. These people were all blacklisted by Shen Yu. When he received the olive branch from Xing Yao, Shen Yu didn't think that the other party would help him for no reason. He just didn't expect that the person behind the scenes would be the CEO of the Shong Corporation. The CEO of the Shong Corporation was very mysterious. The outside world didn't know much about him. Shen Yu had only heard about him occasionally from others. It was said that he was an unreasonable and ruthless person. The image of the man in the mouth of others was very different from the person he saw in person today. What do you think I want? Shong Junlin looked up and met Shen Yu's sharp eyes. It said that Mr. Shong doesn't do business without benefits. I think, I can't bring any benefits to Mr. Shong right now, right? Shen Yu knew himself well. Not to mention his current achievements, even if he stood at the top of the entertainment industry, the benefits he could bring to the CEO of the Shong Corporation were limited. What if I say that I want you? The man relaxed and leaned against the back of the chair. His hands were folded in front of him, and his eyes were direct. The strange thing was that the man's expression didn't change even though he said such words. Only the fire in his eyes showed his master's true intentions. He's looking at me seriously, and I don't hate it. Shen Yu had a strange feeling in his heart. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, he had encountered all kinds of gazes. Some were jealous, some were admiring, some were envious, and some were disgusting. The man's gaze didn't belong to any of them. It was as if he was just answering his questions seriously and didn't make him feel uncomfortable. I don't think that the CEO of the Shong Corporation would lack a bed warmer. Shen Yu raised his eyebrows. Not a bed warmer. The man frowned. Did someone ask you for such a thing? Shen Yu felt that he could hear the displeasure in the man's tone. He smiled. Isn't this kind of thing normal in the entertainment industry? Who? The man pressed his lips and his aura became cold. Shen Yu was really sure this time that the man was angry. Why? Mr. Shong, why are you asking this? Are you going to help me teach them a lesson? They shouldn't have been so rude to you. Only Mr. Shong can do it, right? For some reason, Shen Yu wanted to tease the man who was angry because he was offended. I can't do it either. Shong Junlin looked up at Shen Yu and explained seriously. I didn't mean that. I like your works very much. I don't want those people with bad taste to hinder your career. Shen Yu stood up and put his sunglasses on the desk. He walked to the sofa and sat down. I thought I had charmed Mr. Shong and made him come to Xingyao personally. It seems that I was overthinking. Since that's the case, let's do business according to the rules. The man who had always been good at strategizing in the business world was at a loss. He didn't understand why Shen Yu's attitude suddenly became cold. He stood up subconsciously and walked to Shen Yu. I'm not. If someone else said that, I would be angry. But if it's Mr. Shong, I don't think there's anything to be angry about. Shen Yu suddenly interrupted Shong Junlin. He looked up at the man who had walked in front of him. If I bribe Mr. Shong, can those people from Feng Shong Entertainment get their retribution? How do you want to bribe? Seeing the sly look in the young man's eyes, Shong Junlin knew that he had just been teased. Well, Shen Yu blinked. It depends on what kind of bribe Mr. Shong wants. Shong Junlin's eyes darkened. He put one hand on the back of the sofa behind Shen Yu. Anything? The man didn't hide his aggression. Shen Yu smiled. Didn't Mr. Shong say that you don't have those people's intentions? It's not that I don't. I just don't want to show it and scare you. But Shong Junlin found that the young man didn't seem to be scared. He didn't show any disgust at his real intentions. He had been paying attention to the young man for a while. Naturally, he knew that the young man was different from some people in the entertainment industry. If he was really someone who would do anything to achieve his goals, he wouldn't be embarrassed like this. Brother Shen, we're done here. Come and take a look at the contract. The agent was halfway through his words when he saw the young man being pressed on the sofa by Mr. Shong. After he reacted, he quickly turned his head. I didn't see anything. You can continue. Shong Junlin let go of his hand and stood up. A trace of regret flashed in his heart. Shen Yu stood up as well. He didn't feel the slightest bit embarrassed that his good deed had been exposed. He glanced at his manager, who was emitting a bleak aura with his back facing him. Before Shong Junlin could react, he quickly kissed the man on the face. Give Mr. Shong some interest first. The agent couldn't stay for another minute. He hurriedly left with Shen Yu. Shong Junlin looked at the closed door and touched the place where Shen Yu kissed. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bk50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, mbk50. cc. Chapter 287. On the way from Xingyao to Shen Yu's apartment, the agent wanted to ask something but hesitated. Ask whatever you want. Back at the apartment, Shen Yu relaxed and threw himself on the sofa. You and Mr. Shong. The agent opened his mouth and hesitated for a moment. Haven't you always hated this kind of relationship? Ever since he entered the entertainment industry, the agent had been by Shen Yu's side. With such a face and in a place like the entertainment industry, it was easy to imagine what kind of things he would encounter. Shen Yu had put in a lot of effort to get to where he was now. Even the crisis this time was the result of his unwillingness to compromise. What kind of person do you think Mr. Shong is? Shen Yu didn't answer his question. Instead, he asked another question. Cold and powerful, the agent answered without hesitation. If such a person really wants something, why does he have to take such a big detour? You've seen the contract. It's very beneficial to us, and it doesn't mention anything about me needing to pay extra. That's true, but... The agent was still worried. He knew better than anyone how attractive Shen Yu was. The development of the situation this time was beyond his expectations, and he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Next, it's time for Zhu Qing to spit out the benefits he took from me with interest. Shen Yu curled his lips, and a dangerous look flashed in his eyes. Shen Yu's phone suddenly vibrated. He took it out and clicked on it. It was a friend request. Shen Yu's finger swiped. Just as he was about to ignore this message, he saw the other party's name, Shang Junlin. Shen Yu paused and accepted the other party's friend request. He wasn't surprised that the other party had his contact information. When he left, he also got the other party's business card. Shen Yu found the business card. It was black with gold embossing. It was simple and elegant. Shen Yu rubbed the business card and saw a string of numbers on the back. He tentatively entered the number. It was the number that had just added him as a friend. Did he give him his private contact information? Shen Yu found it funny. He picked out a cute greeting from the emoji pack and sent it over. Not long after, the other party replied. Shang, home? Cutie you, here we are. Is this Mr. Shang's private contact number? Shang, yes, if anything happens, send me a message directly. Cutie you, Mr. Shang, do you think I will be bullied? If I am bullied, will the Chamber of Commerce help me? Cat head GIF, Shang, no one will dare to bully you in the future. Cutie you, Boss Shang, you're so nice. Then you have to keep a close eye on me. Don't let me get bullied in a place you can't see. Shang, okay. His serious answer made Shen Yu want to chat with him. Unknowingly, he talked a lot with him. When the manager turned around and saw Shen Yu sitting on the sofa with a smile on his face, he asked curiously, "What did you see that made you so happy?" Zhu Qing is in trouble. It's just a small joke. The agent's words reminded Shen Yu. Send a copy of the information we collected before to your subordinates. Also, contact the people in Xingyaro. We haven't signed a contract with Starshine yet. Isn't it inappropriate to look for them now? It's okay. You just have to tell them. After talking to his manager, Shen Yu continued to reply to Shang Junlin's messages. Cutie you, Mr. Shang, I have some evidence about Fengshang. I asked my manager to send it to Xingyaro. Shang, I'll get someone to deal with it. After replying, Shang Junlin dialed the internal line. Fengshang Entertainment. Investigate this company in the past few years. The secretary was surprised for a moment, but he quickly agreed. After developing in the entertainment industry for so many years, Shen Yu had a team that specialized in serving him. With the help of the people in Xingyaro, the negative comments about Shen Yu on the internet instantly reversed. Shaking Rabbit, have you seen the latest news? Fengshang is too low. They actually used size resources to promote ZQ. Particles light, I saw it. It's all solid evidence. This melon has reversed too quickly. ZQ's fans are still angry. Why don't they take a look at their boss? He's nothing compared to SY. Wind and Rain, SY is one of the founding members of Fengshang Entertainment. Why is he being treated like this? Fate, it's like this. According to the internal news, the new boss of Fengshang wanted to do something to SY, but SY refused. They had a falling out and ZQ took the opportunity to get close to the new boss. So, Wind and Rain, there's actually such a big melon? Buying chopped hands. Not only that, Fengshang also joined forces with other companies in the entertainment industry to suppress SY. The netizens passionately ate the melon. Soon, this news became a hot topic. Some resourceful netizens summarized which resources Zhu Qing had snatched from Shen Yu. After the news was released, the netizens almost attacked Zhu Qing and Fengshang Entertainment's Weibo. When the new boss of Fengshang received the news, he was so angry that he smashed the things on his desk. What are you doing? How can you let this kind of news climb to the top of the search? We contacted the platform immediately, but they refused to take it down. The person in charge was in a difficult position. Who is helping him behind the scenes? Who is even willing to go against Fengshang? The new boss of Fengshang's face was gloomy. In order to force Shen Yu to submit, he had put in a lot of effort this time. He was about to succeed, but who knew that there would be a sudden reversal. Seeing the duck that was about to be in his hands fly away, the new boss of Fengshan was very anxious. This time, the one who was affected the most was undoubtedly Zhu Qing. At first, there were still fans who fought for him, but they didn't expect that the more they fought, the more it became true. In the end, the partners that they had agreed to cooperate with also called and hinted that they couldn't continue the cooperation. Shun Yu also received a lot of calls from people who wanted to cooperate with him again, but they were all rejected by him. This is the new plan that we have made for Mr. Shun. Of course, Mr. Shun can tell us if there's anything wrong with it. After receiving instructions from the higher-ups, the person from Shinyaro who was in charge of liaising with Shun Yu was very respectful to him. In the bright and clean office, Shun Yu sat on the sofa, holding the development plan that Shinyaro had sorted out overnight. Shun Yu read it very carefully. Although it didn't take long, Shun Yu could see that this plan was carefully made. It considered all the possible aspects that might appear in the future. Each of them maximized the benefits for Shun Yu to the extreme, and gave him enough time to rest. After reading it, Shun Yu put forward some of his own ideas and made some adjustments to this perfect plan. After the discussion, the person in charge talked about the termination of the contract. Mr. Shin, your contract with Fengshan will expire in a month. Do you want it to expire automatically, or? I intend to terminate the contract voluntarily. After the termination, I will sign a contract with your company. Also, I have a team of people who will continue to work for me. Mr. Shin, don't worry. We won't interfere too much in your affairs. This discussion went very smoothly. When he left, Shin Yu was in a good mood. His agent walked beside him and sighed. Shinyaro is indeed under the Shong group. They are so generous. All kinds of treatment and resources were far from what Fengshan Entertainment could compare with. Shun Yu used to fight for a lot of resources by himself. After Fengshan became bigger, they thought that they could allocate those resources at will and gave them to others. Several of the collaborations that Zhu Qing had accepted were all won by Shun Yu. Shun Yu's phone vibrated. He took a look at it and said to his agent, "You go back first." The agent still wanted to talk to him in detail about the future development, but he was surprised. "What's wrong?" Shun Yu shook his phone. "I have an appointment." Shong Junlin sent a message on the phone, saying that he was free and invited him to meet up. "Who is it? Shall I send you there?" Shun Yu shook his head. "He will be here soon." As soon as he finished speaking, a Maybach slowly stopped beside them. The car window rolled down, revealing the handsome side profile of a man. The agent closed his mouth. He understood. "In that case, I will go and talk about the work you arranged earlier." The car door opened. Shun Yu got in and sat beside the man. "Mr. Shong, are you not busy today?" It was the first time Shun Yu saw Shong Junlin since that day. The man was still in a suit, and the sapphire cufflinks at the cuffs added a touch of elegance. "I'm not busy." Shong Junlin didn't say a word about the fact that he had postponed several meetings just to see the young man. "Mr. Shong, where are you going to take me?" Shun Yu looked at the scenery flashing by the window and asked. "To eat." Shong Junlin seemed to be worried that Shun Yu would think that he was too cold. He added, "The owner of a private restaurant is good at cooking. I want to take you to try it." "Is Mr. Shong so considerate to everyone?" Shun Yu asked knowingly. Shong Junlin looked at him deeply. "Mr. Shun, do you think I am such a person?" Shun Yu shook his head honestly. The two chatted casually, and the atmosphere wasn't awkward. Half an hour later, they arrived at the private restaurant Shong Junlin mentioned. Shong Junlin had booked a table in advance. After the two got out of the car, the waiter led them all the way inside. After taking their seats, the two of them didn't have to wait for long. Dishes were served one after another. "I ordered some first. See if they are to your liking." Every dish was delicious. Under the attack of the aroma, Shun Yu had long forgotten about other things. He couldn't wait to taste it. Shun Yu sighed with satisfaction. "Only when I don't need to work can I enjoy delicious food at will." During the meal, Shun Yu found that Shong Junlin was very good at taking care of people. For example, Shong Junlin would pick food for him according to his preferences, help him pick out fish bones, and peel shrimp and crab shells, Shin Yu only needed to be responsible for eating. Mr. Shong, you are so good at taking care of people. Your partner will definitely be very happy in the future. Shong Junlin stopped peeling the crab shell. You don't know how to take care of people. After eating a mouthful of crab meat, Shin Yu narrowed his eyes. How lucky am I to be able to enjoy such thoughtful care from Mr. Shong. During the meal, both the guests and the host enjoyed themselves. Shin Yu ate happily, and Shong Junlin also served him happily. After the meal, Shong Junlin sent Shin Yu back. If you like it, why don't you come again next time? Shong Junlin asked in a low voice in the car. As long as Mr. Shong doesn't find it troublesome. After this interaction, Shin Yu found that Shong Junlin was a very easy person to get along with. When he was with him, he could completely relax. Shin Yu hadn't felt this comfortable with anyone for a long time. The security of Shin Yu's place was very good. There was no need to worry about paparazzi. When they came back, it was already late. The fiery red sunset hung on the horizon, softening the eyebrows of the people around him. The Maybach stopped slowly. Shong Junlin got out of the car first, and Shin Yu followed behind him. I'm very happy with today's dinner, Mr. Shong. Shong Junlin's tense expression completely relaxed after hearing this sentence. As long as you're happy. He was afraid that his arrangement wouldn't satisfy the young man. Shong Junlin was tall. Even though Shin Yu was 1.8 meters tall, he was still half a head taller than Shin Yu. Shin Yu looked at him. The man lowered his head slightly. His eyes were full of tenderness and unconcealable love. Shin Yu suddenly stepped forward and hugged the man. Feeling the man's body suddenly tense, he chuckled and whispered in the man's ear, Mr. Shong, I'm also very happy that you helped me vent my anger. Shong Junlin only felt something brush his ear. It was soft and slightly cold. Before he could feel it carefully, the young man had already moved away. There was a flash of disappointment in his heart. Under the tall trees, the young man in a beige sweater hugged the man in a suit. The atmosphere was warm. Shin Yu saw that the ear that he had bullied was gradually dyed red. His heart was slightly moved. The CEO of the Shong Corporation was surprisingly innocent, and surprisingly, a little tasty. Mr. Shong, you helped me. It's time for me to repay you. No need. The young man's refusal was stopped. He put his index finger on the man's lips, raised his head slightly, and kissed his finger. Their breaths mingled. Shong Junlin could feel the young man's breath invading him little by little. There was only the young man's finger between their lips, as if they were really kissing. Genius. 1 second. Remember this website, www.bk50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, mbk50. cc. Chapter 288. Shin Yu retreated a little from the man's embrace and smiled at the man's face that suddenly deepened. What is this? Shong Junlin's voice was slightly hoarse. Just a small reward. Shin Yu seemed to be unaware of the dangerous aura of the man. She smiled and said, I can't let Mr. Shong work for nothing. Do you know what this means? Shong Junlin's eyes darkened. Mr. Shong, I'm an adult and an artist who has worked in the entertainment industry for many years. I'm not a baby who lives in an ivory tower. Shin Yu's eyes were slightly provocative. Shong Junlin no longer restrained himself. He reached out and pressed the back of Shin Yu's head, pressing her towards him. Shin Yu suddenly opened her eyes wide. Her lips were hot. Their lips touched. This time, there was no obstruction between their lips. A strong sense of invasion swept over. Her lips were sucked, nibbled, and her breath was robbed. The surrounding temperature rose. Shin Yu couldn't help but grab the man's clothes. Wrinkles appeared on the ironed suit jacket. In a trance, Shin Yu heard footsteps approaching. She panicked and pushed the man. Someone's coming. Oh, Shong Junlin sucked the young man's lips fiercely before letting him go. There seems to be someone. Shin Yu lowered her head and leaned her forehead on the man's shoulder. She was panting slightly. The footsteps were getting closer. Shin Yu didn't dare to expose her relationship with Shong Junlin in this situation. She couldn't help but nervously grab the man's clothes. Shong Junlin lowered his eyes slightly. He could see a red color spreading from the young man's neck. He hugged the young man in his arms and said, "Don't be afraid." The two of them hid between the black car and the tree. Every approaching footstep seemed to step on Shen Yu's heart. Shang Junlin patted Shen Yu's back comfortingly and said, "No one will come." Sure enough, not long after, Shen Yu heard the footsteps stop. The owner seemed to have turned around. Not long after, the footsteps gradually faded away. He wouldn't be discovered. Shen Yu heaved a sigh of relief and leaned against the man. Shang Junlin was considerate and did not ask further. However, this accident had ruined the romantic atmosphere between the two of them. Shen Yu was not in the mood to do anything else. Getting up from the man's arms, the young man had returned to his usual appearance. Looking at Shang Junlin's wrinkled coat, Shen Yu frowned. "Do you want me to go up and deal with it?" Shang Junlin did not refuse. After entering the house, Shen Yu asked Shang Junlin to take off his coat and take care of it himself. He would iron his own gowns occasionally, so he was not unfamiliar with this kind of thing. "There's water on the table. You can pour yourself some if you want." Fortunately, only a small part of the coat was wrinkled by him, so it wasn't troublesome to deal with it. After ironing it, Shen Yu came out with the coat. "I only did a simple job. I'm not a professional, so I'll have to trouble Mr. Shang to make do with it." Shang Junlin took the coat and put it in the crook of his arm. The man was wearing a white shirt with the buttons buttoned to the top. A dark patterned tie was meticulously tied around his neck. Every part of his body exuded an air of abstinence. On the contrary, Shen Yu was dressed much more casually. A loose beige sweater added a lazy temperament to him. When he stood next to Shang Junlin, not only did he not look out of place, but they also complemented each other. Shang Junlin did not stay for long. After he left, his agent pushed the door open and came in. "The work over there has been decided. You can shoot it directly in 2 days." The agent knew that Shen Yu had a plan in mind and would not ask about his private affairs. "I know. How are the preparations for the termination of the contract going?" Shen Yu leaned on the sofa, his posture lazy. "Don't worry. Your good President Shang has even arranged a lawyer for you. Once we handle the evidence here, we can directly terminate the contract." Speaking of this, the agent sighed in his heart. He was also used to seeing big waves in the entertainment industry. He had never seen anyone like Shang Junlin. Not only was he generous, but he also considered every detail. If Shen Yu had met him earlier, he would not have had to take so many detours. By the way, Director Yuan sent an invitation for the film. "Do you want to take it?" "It's Cloud Top." "Yes, Director Yuan is aiming for an award this time. The cast is good. If you agree, you will be the male lead." Didn't Director Yuan already have a candidate for the male lead? When he first found out about this script, Shen Yu had the idea of taking it. But at that time, he and Feng Shong were in a deadlock. When he heard that Director Yuan already had a candidate in mind, he gave up. Director Yuan originally wanted you to take the role. He already sent the invitation. Who knew that Feng Shong would take it? They wanted to use the same trick and push Ju Qing over. Director Yuan was not willing, so he said those words. The agent pouted. He was very disdainful of Feng Shong's actions. "Who is the investor of Cloud Top?" "It's Sinew Technology and Xinyao." "Take it." "Okay, I will send you the script later. Take a look first. Also, if you accept this script, you will have to join the cast in a few days." "Okay, I will take a look first." Cloud Top was a big production fantasy drama. From the moment the news was released, countless people had their eyes on it. Shen Yu had not yet terminated his contract with Feng Shong. His agent and the cast discussed and decided not to announce that he would be taking part in the drama. After contacting Director Yuan, Shen Yu sent a message to Shang Junlin. "Cute you. Did Director Shang help me get the male lead role in Cloud Top?" A long time had passed since the news of Cloud Top was released. All the preparation work was done. The main actors and supporting roles were announced one by one. As soon as the male lead was in place, filming could start immediately. Shen Yu did not think that the other party would wait for him for so many days in vain. He knew that he did not have the charm. The other party's reply confirmed Shun Yu's thoughts. Shong, if you don't like it, you can find another one. Although Shun Yu had not officially signed the contract with Xinyao had done a lot of preparation work. Other than Cloud Top, Shun Yu also received a few high-quality scripts. Without exception, all of them were invested in by Xinyao. Cute you, it's not that I don't like it. I just think that director Shong will spoil me. Shong, you deserve the best. Shun Yu stared at the phone screen and covered his face. The straightforward director Shong was really irresistible. With the legal team provided by Shong Junlin, the termination of Shun Yu's contract with Fengshang went very smoothly. It was even smoother than Shun Yu had imagined. As soon as the termination was announced, it immediately became a hot search. Yu Yu's big wife, our Yu Yu has finally terminated his contract with Fengshang. Repost this Weibo post and choose 10 people to give the latest intelligent robot from Sinew Technology. The repost below was the termination notice that Shun Yu had posted on Weibo. The notice was very long. It stated in detail how much resources Shun Yu had taken away from Fengshang and how much pressure they had put on him. After the fans saw it, they were furious. They tore apart Fengshang Entertainment and Zhu Qing's company into the hot search. The most eye-catching comment was Yu Yu's big wife. The fans all reposted it and commented, "Rich woman, please forgive me." Shun Yu also saw the situation in the comment section. "It's her again." His agent glanced at him and said, "This fan is also very loyal to you. Remember." "I remember her." Of course he remembered her. When Shun Yu first entered the entertainment industry, this rich woman was already there. Other than being rich, she was also very cold. Other than drawing prizes, she was also very generous. At one point, people suspected that she was Shun Yu's own account. When Shun Yu saw the prize, he paused for a moment. Sinew Technology. He remembered that Sinew Technology was one of the investors of Cloud Top. It must be a coincidence. Shun Yu shook his head and threw out the unrealistic thoughts in his mind. The day after the termination of the contract, Shun Yu signed the contract with Xinyao. That night, Shun Yu updated his Weibo and Xingyao's official Weibo reposted it. The comment section was full of congratulations. The fans thought that this was already good news among good news. Unexpectedly, 2 days later, the official Weibo of Yunjian posted Shun Yu's Weibo and announced the male lead candidate under the anticipation of netizens. Bells in the wind, oh my god, SY is too awesome. First, they signed Xingyao, then the male lead of Cloud Top. This series of actions caught people off guard. Love fish for a lifetime, no wonder they are my idol. They never disappoint. Because of this series of actions, Shun Yu almost became a hot topic. The netizens were enjoying the drama. Shun Yu had already packed his things and was ready to go to the set. His agent and Shun Yu were both signed under Xingyao. In addition to his agent, Xingyao also arranged 2 assistants for Shun Yu. This time, they would be filming in M-City for about 3 months. Coincidentally, Shun Yu didn't have any other jobs. There weren't any investors in the set, so the atmosphere was very good. Shun Yu had already familiarized himself with the script before coming. With his talent, he could almost pass it in one go. Director Yuan was full of praise for him. "Brother Shun, someone is visiting." After filming that day, one of the assistants ran to Shun Yu and said mysteriously, "Brother Shun is so popular, isn't it normal for people to visit? Why do you look like you haven't seen the world?" The agent laughed and scolded. When the agent sent Shun Yu to the lounge, he knew why the assistant had such an expression. It was because the person who came to visit was none other than the head of the Shong group, Shong Junlin. Shun Yu had yet to change out of his costume. Before he came to film, he had met Shong Junlin quite a few times. Basically, it was Shong Junlin who invited him every time. If Shun Yu had nothing to do, he would go to the appointment. He had always been curious as to why the dignified CEO of the Shong Corporation had so much free time to eat with him. But every time he asked, the answer he got was "I'm not busy." The agent silently left the space for the 2 of them. Shun Yu walked to the sofa and sat down. He was wearing a moon-white ancient costume. It seemed that he hadn't come out of his role yet. His every move revealed the unique elegance and alienation of the character. Shang Junlin stared at him almost without blinking. Shun Yu poured 2 cups of warm water and handed one to Shang Junlin. "Mr. Shang, why are you here?" Shun Yu had been on set for more than a month. During this month, he hadn't stopped contacting Shang Junlin. Every day when he was free, he would chat with him. Before today, Shang Junlin had never revealed that he was coming to M City. "I'm here to deal with some matters at the branch." Shang Junlin's words were true, but he didn't say that it was usually not his turn to deal with such matters. If Shun Yu hadn't been filming in M City, he wouldn't have made a special trip here. "Why didn't you tell me yesterday?" Shun Yu took a sip of the tea. "Mr. Shang, are you planning to give me a surprise?" "Are you surprised?" Shang Junlin didn't comment. "Yes, I am." Shun Yu's eyes curved slightly. His cold temperament was broken, like the melting of spring snow. "Mr. Shang, did you come to visit me because you miss me?" It must be known that the filming of Top of the Clouds was completely closed, and visitors were not allowed to visit. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bk50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, mbk50. cc. Chapter 289. Knock Knock. Just as Shang Junlin was about to say something, someone knocked on the door. "Come in." The manager walked in under Shang Junlin's unfriendly gaze. He didn't want to disturb them at this time, but he had something important to do and couldn't afford to delay it. "Brother Shen," Director Yuan changed the script a little and said that he wants to reshoot a scene. He wants you to go over. Originally, there was no more filming for Shun Yu today, but Shang Junlin specially came over. He had planned to go out for a meal with Shang Junlin, but now it seemed that it wasn't possible. "President Shang, do you want to watch me film?" Just like that, Shun Yu had a big tail following behind him. Seeing Shun Yu coming over, Director Yuan immediately called him over and explained the scene to him. As he was busy, Shun Yu didn't have time to care about Shang Junlin. The manager followed beside Shang Junlin and explained to Shun Yu in a low voice, "Brother Shen is like this when he is filming. He is completely immersed in the scene, I know." Shang Junlin looked at the young man on the set without blinking. The young man put on a new costume. Under the camera, he seemed to be a different person. The immortal who cared about the world seemed to have walked out of a book under his acting. Under the camera, Shun Yu seemed to be glowing. It was so dazzling that people couldn't look away. It was already an hour later when the scene ended. Shun Yu got out of character and saw the man sitting on a small stool at a glance. The man was tall and had nowhere to put his long legs. Sitting on the small stool, Shun Yu didn't know why, but he gave off a sense of grievance. Shun Yu smiled at him and lowered his head to take off the props. The director was very satisfied with the new scene. He clapped his hands and said, "Let's call it a day." Suddenly, there was a commotion on the set. Shang Junlin's appearance didn't lose to any celebrities. His sudden appearance on the set was too eye-catching. Many people had been secretly sizing him up for a long time. If they didn't know that Director Yuan had strict rules, they would have made a scene just now. Now that the filming was over, they were secretly trying to find out the identity of the newcomer. The manager frowned. Worried that Shang Junlin would be unhappy, he said, "Brother Shen, do you want to go to the waiting room after the shoot?" Shun Yu was about to walk towards Shang Junlin when he heard the director calling him. "Shun Yu, come and take a look." Helplessly, Shun Yu gave the man who had been waiting for a long time an apologetic look and went to the director. A fan came to visit and gave a lot of things to the crew. "Let's split it up, everyone will get a share." The stage supervisor raised his megaphone. Behind him, there were a few men in waiters' clothes. Each of them was holding something in their hands. There were various snacks and drinks, as well as the main course. "Is this the food of Zhonglingji?" The person who received the food looked at the food in his hand in astonishment. The packaging was exquisite, and the exquisite logo couldn't be ignored. It was indeed Zhonglingji. Whose fan is it? How generous. Zhonglingji is a high-end food brand under the Shang Group. Their food is delicious, but it's also very expensive. Everyone will get a share. They have all kinds of staple and non-staple food. Oh my God, how much did this cost? The crew usually doesn't allow people to visit the set. Today, it seems that only Brother Shen has a fan. Everyone's attention was captured by the food. After being curious for a while, they didn't care about the extra person in the crew. Shen Yu and the director chatted for about 10 minutes. The director saw that he had something on his mind and mercifully let him go. Go. Director Yuan, I want to take a day off tomorrow. Shen Yu didn't have many scenes tomorrow, so he could squeeze a day off. Director Yuan glanced at him and then looked at the extraordinary man whose eyes were fixed on Shen Yu. Okay, I'll give you a day off. He had a good impression of Shen Yu. After working together, he could understand why Shen Yu could achieve so much at such a young age. He never acted like a big shot, treated his work seriously, was willing to work hard, and had a good understanding. Working with him was simply too worrisome. After getting a day off, Shen Yu was happy. After saying goodbye to Director Yuan, he walked to Shang Junlin. Mr. Shang, I've made you wait for a long time. This time, I'll treat you to a meal. Shang Junlin, I've already booked a hotel. You can treat me next time. Shen Yu, that's fine too. If Mr. Shang comes to visit again, let me know in advance. I'll ask Director Yuan to adjust the time. Shang Junlin, you don't have to adjust the time for me. It's good to watch you film. Shen Yu, what do you think of my acting, Mr. Shang? Shang Junlin, it's very good. Shen Yu went to remove his makeup and change his clothes first. Then, he left the set with Shang Junlin. The black car stopped at the side of the road. Shang Junlin opened the door and let Shen Yu get in first. After the two of them sat down, the car started slowly. Shen Yu glanced at the driver's seat. The driver was a man he didn't know. This is my other secretary. His surname is Tan. After satisfying his curiosity, Shen Yu relaxed and leaned against the back seat. If Mr. Shang didn't come, I might have to wait 3 months before I can leave the set. Director Yuan is willing to let me go. Did Mr. Shang do something? I told him in advance that I'll take you out for a meal. Before coming, Shang Junlin had learned about Shen Yu's schedule from the crew. Shen Yu didn't have a lot of work to do today. If it wasn't for the sudden change of scenes, he would have finished filming for the day. This time, Shang Junlin took Shen Yu to an old hotel under the Shang Group. Shen Yu had heard about this hotel a long time ago. Standing at the entrance of the hotel, Shen Yu looked at the man and said, "Will I get special treatment if I follow Mr. Shang, the big boss behind this hotel? Does it count if you can complain to him face to face?" Shang Junlin took out a scarf from the car and put it on Shen Yu. After entering autumn, the weather was getting colder by the day. The warmth brought by the scarf instantly spread all over Shen Yu's body. Shen Yu looked down. Is this a gift from Mr. Shang? I'll give you the real gift when we go in. Shang Junlin led him into the hotel. When the big boss arrived, the person in charge of the hotel personally came out to welcome him. He knew the big boss's habits. He didn't say a word along the way. After arranging everything, he turned around and left. Shang Junlin chose to eat at the top floor. It was a completely transparent restaurant. Standing in it, one would feel as if they were in the clouds. Shen Yu knew this place. It was known as the Cloud Restaurant. It was a very famous scene in the hotel. It was said that eating there was like being in a fairyland. Even though the price was ridiculously high, there were still many people who wanted to experience it. But today, the restaurant, which was supposed to be full, was only occupied by Shang Junlin and Shen Yu. The surroundings were filled with blue flowers. The lights were also adjusted to the corresponding blue color. The crystals refracted beautiful light. It was a beautiful scene. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin sat opposite each other. Shang Junlin took out a small exquisite box and put it on the table. He pushed it to Shen Yu. See if you like it. Shen Yu opened the box. A pair of sapphire cufflinks came into view. The cufflinks were exquisite. The sapphire lay on the black velvet cloth. Under the light, it emitted a faint light. It was like the deep sea that one couldn't see the bottom of. With just one look, Shen Yu fell in love with it. Seeing the love in his eyes, Shang Junlin's tense nerves relaxed. He lowered his eyes and cut the steak in his hand. After cutting it, He naturally swapped it with the one in front of Shun Yu. Try it. The steak was fresh and tender. Shun Yu unknowingly finished half of the plate and put down his fork. What's wrong? Is it not to your taste? Shang Junlin put down his fork. No, it's delicious. But I can't eat too much now. Shun Yu sighed. After this movie is finished, President Shang, please treat me again. Not filming meant that he didn't have to worry about gaining weight. It meant that he could eat as much as he wanted. Shang Junlin chuckled, it's my fault. Have some fruit. Shun Yu forked a few pieces of fruit and said while eating, when I first joined the crew, Feng Shang's people came to find me. Later, they stopped. Did President Shang do something? Don't worry. They can't even take care of themselves now. They won't affect you. Shang Junlin said calmly. He didn't even need to do anything to deal with a company like Feng Shang. Just tax evasion alone was enough to make them suffer. Shang Junlin handed over the evidence that he ordered people to find. How could Feng Shang still care about Shun Yu? Thank you, President Shang. Cheers. Even if Shang Junlin didn't say it, Shun Yu also knew that his troubles were solved by this man. His agent had told Shun Yu more than once that with President Shang's protection, he could do whatever he wanted in this circle. It was reasonable to say that if Shang Junlin had any plans for him, he should have told him about it. But the fact was that Shang Junlin had helped him solve many problems in silence. He never said or hinted at anything. He gave him an environment where he could do what he liked with peace of mind, so he didn't have to worry about any external factors. Shun Yu poured himself a glass of wine and shook the glass. Through the transparent red liquid in the crystal glass, Shun Yu saw his own smiling eyes. He took a sip, and the taste of wine spread in his mouth. Unknowingly, the master finished the glass of wine. Shun Yu's eyes were also stained with drunkenness. Slightly tipsy, Shun Yu stood up. He didn't know if it was because of the dazzling light or because he was really drunk, but he staggered. Shang Junlin quickly stood up and supported him. Shun Yu leaned into the man's arms. I'm a little dizzy. Shang Junlin sat down and held him in his arms. He rubbed his forehead. Why is your alcohol tolerance so low? Do you feel better? While the man wasn't paying attention, Shun Yu picked up the glass in front of the man and took a big gulp. Shang Junlin wanted to say something, but Shun Yu had already pulled his tie and leaned forward to kiss him. Shang Junlin swallowed unconsciously when the strong wine was poured into his mouth. The wine passed through his throat with the young man's breath, bringing a burst of heat. Shang Junlin put his arms around the young man's waist and took the initiative to deepen the kiss. The taste of the strong wine spread in their mouths. After some time, Shun Yu felt that he was even more drunk, and the root of his tongue was also very numb. He pressed his right hand on the back of the man's neck and struggled to escape from the man's lips. Shang Junlin slowly let go of Shun Yu's lips. He lowered his eyes and stared at the young man's lips that had been brutalized. His eyes were deep. I'll send you back. His voice was full of uncontrollable desire. Shun Yu felt something. He leaned into the man's arms and panted slightly. Before coming out, I asked for a day off from Director Yuan. Shang Junlin's forehead twitched, and his voice was hoarse. Do you know what you're talking about? I'm not so drunk that I don't know anything. Or does Mr. Shang not want to? Shun Yu laughed softly. His soft lips gently rubbed the man's neck, and he said meaningfully, but Mr. Shang's body doesn't seem to say that. Shang Junlin suddenly picked up Shun Yu, turned around, and walked towards the elevator. His footsteps were messy. The door of the presidential suite was pushed open and then slammed shut. Shang Junlin carried him all the way to his bedroom and put him on the bed. He leaned over and said with a deep gaze, Genius 1 second remember this website, www.bk50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, mbk50. cc. Chapter 290. Shun Yu lay on the bed and put his hands on the man's shoulders. He raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, What do I regret? At this point, even if Shun Yu wanted to go back on his words, Shang Junlin couldn't stop. Shang Junlin kissed Shun Yu's forehead and slowly left his mark on her body. Shun Yu raised his head high and his Adam's apple was sucked into the man's mouth. He gently nibbled on it. The fire spread like a raging prairie. It was as if he was in a prairie of fire. Every part of his skin was burning and his blood was boiling. In a daze, Shunyu felt that the light above his head was shaking non-stop. His slender fingers grasped the dark patterned bedsheet. Before he could exert any force, his fingers were pulled apart and another person's body temperature covered his fingers. Their fingers were intertwined. The mist dispersed and everything around them was shaking. Shunyu had to hold on to Shang Junlin's shoulders to stabilize his body. Red plum blossoms bloomed on the white snow. When the wind and snow stopped, Shunyu was sweating all over. He lay on the bed lazily and didn't want to move. Shang Junlin hugged him and kissed the skin on the young man's shoulder and neck. Shunyu felt that Shang Junlin wanted more. "I want to take a bath," Shunyu said lazily. Shang Junlin's movements were careful. Except for the initial discomfort, Shunyu was quite satisfied with this experience. "I'll go turn on the hot water first." Shang Junlin kissed Shunyu's lips and casually put on a shirt and got out of bed. Soon, the sound of running water came from the bathroom. Shunyu slightly propped himself up and looked around. Their clothes were thrown messily on the ground. It seemed that they couldn't wear them anymore. Shunyu touched his forehead. He didn't bring any clothes. When Shang Junlin came out, he changed into a bathrobe and had a similar one on his arm. "President Shang seems to have ruined my clothes." Shunyu pointed at the pile of clothes on the ground and joked. "I'll ask my secretary to send 2 sets of clothes over later. Here are my clothes, you can wear mine first." Shang Junlin wrapped the young man in a bathrobe and carried him horizontally. Shunyu was carried to the bathroom and put into the bathtub with the water temperature adjusted. The bathtub was very big, more than enough for a Shunyu to lie in. The temperature of the water was also very suitable, but the water was too clear. The hot water relieved his tiredness. Shunyu put his arms on the edge of the bathtub and invited the man who was making bubbles for him. "Mr. Shang, do you want to join us?" Shang Junlin's eyes darkened as he stepped into the bathtub. With one more person, the extra water overflowed from the edge of the bathtub. Shang Junlin held the young man in his arms and carefully washed every part of him. In the bathroom, the temperature was getting higher and higher, and Shunyu's face was getting redder and redder. Ripples appeared on the water surface. More than an hour later, Shunyu changed into a clean bathrobe and was completely exhausted. Shunyu lay down on the clean bed and fell asleep quickly. Shang Junlin didn't go too far as Shunyu still had to film. Even so, Shunyu still lay in bed for half a day the next day. He wasted his good rest time just like that. Shunyu was lying on the bed with a tablet in his hand and reading the news. He caught a glimpse of Shang Junlin coming in with fruits and asked, "President Shang, aren't you here to deal with official business? Isn't it bad to stay in the hotel all the time?" When Shunyu woke up, Shang Junlin was having a video conference with the company's staff. When he heard the commotion, he quickly ended the conference. Until now, Shunyu hadn't seen him ask about the company's affairs. In the middle of the conference, the secretary came and brought Shunyu's clothes. However, Shunyu was too lazy to get up, so he was still wearing the bathrobe that Shang Junlin put on him before he went to bed yesterday. Shang Junlin came over and put the fruit plate beside the bed. He put it on Shunyu's face and felt that his body temperature was normal. He said, "I'm free for a day." Not to mention that he was here for Shunyu, and dealing with official business was just a side trip. Even if he was here for the company's affairs, he wouldn't leave Shunyu alone in the hotel at this time. Shang Junlin put a soft pillow behind Shunyu and helped him sit up, eat something. All kinds of fruits were washed and cut into small pieces and placed on the fruit plate. Shunyu didn't hesitate and asked Shang Junlin to feed him. "I don't want to eat this." Shunyu was very picky sometimes. If he said he didn't want to eat something, he wouldn't eat it no matter what. He would only eat what he liked, and Shang Junlin would eat the rest. "Where are my cufflinks?" Shunyu suddenly remembered the gift he received in the restaurant. Here, Shang Junlin took out an exquisite gift box from the drawer of the bedside table and handed it to Shunyu. "After we left yesterday, the staff put it away." The two of them stayed in the hotel for the whole day. After dinner, Shang Junlin sent Shunyu back to the set. Shunyu didn't let Shang Junlin send him to the set, so he went back to the set in a low-key manner. Shang Junlin watched his back disappear from his sight, then he signaled the driver to drive, go to the branch office. Since he came here in person, he would deal with the matter here as well. Shen Yu's agent waited for the whole day. When he saw Shen Yu coming back, he hurriedly went to greet him. When he saw Shen Yu, he stopped in his tracks. The young man's complexion was ruddy, and there was a touch of beauty between his eyebrows. When he thought of Director Yuan suddenly telling him to give Shen Yu another day off, his agent could roughly guess what happened last night, and his mood was a little complicated. Shen Yu wasn't surprised when he heard from his agent that he had an extra day off. During the day in the hotel, Shang Junlin had asked him if he wanted to rest for a few more days. After this time, the crew received food from the rich fans of some celebrities from time to time. Sometimes it was food from Zhonglingji, sometimes it was food from other restaurants. There was a wide variety of snacks and drinks, and the crew's meals were greatly improved. Later, Shang Junlin came to visit again. This time, the two of them didn't do anything, because Shen Yu's filming had reached a critical stage. He had to be hanging from a wire almost every day, so he couldn't squeeze out a holiday. Shang Junlin felt sorry for Shen Yu's hard work, but he also knew that this was Shen Yu's favorite career, so he couldn't interfere. He only massaged Shen Yu to relax after every filming. In the lounge, Shen Yu enjoyed the massage service from CEO Shang. After the massage, he leaned over and kissed the man's face. "Thank you for your hard work, President Shang." Shang Junlin pressed him down and kissed him before letting him go. "Pay attention to rest, don't tire yourself out." Shang Junlin acted in a low-key manner. After he came, he accompanied Shen Yu to film for a few days. The crew had some guesses about the relationship between the two, but they didn't know if Shang Junlin had done something, so no one talked about it. 2 months later, Shen Yu finished filming and returned to B City. When he left, the weather was still warm, but when he came back, it was already snowing heavily in B City. Shen Yu wore a coat, a scarf, and a mask as he walked out of the airport. A black Bentley was parked on the side of the road. Shen Yu narrowed his eyes and walked straight over. The car window rolled down, revealing the man's familiar side profile. "Why are you alone? Where are your agent and assistant?" Shang Junlin got out of the car and saw the familiar scarf around Shen Yu's neck. His eyes overflowed with a smile. "They went to deal with the fans. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come out for a while." Shen Yu got in the car, and Shang Junlin also got in. He held his hands in his palms. "Are you cold?" "I'm fine." Shang Junlin's body was very warm. Shen Yu relaxed and nestled into the man's arms. Shang Junlin took the opportunity to hug him. "I booked a restaurant. I'll take you to eat first, and then I'll send you back. I've also reserved seats for your agent and assistant." "Okay." Shen Yu didn't object. There was still some time before the new year. During this time, Xingyao didn't arrange any work for Shen Yu, so he could have a good rest for more than a month. A few days after returning to B City, a series of bad news about Fengshan Entertainment broke out on the internet. The end of the year was a good time to watch the drama. Netizens moved when they heard the news. Fengshan Entertainment and its artists almost dominated the entire hot search. But this time, almost all the news was negative. The disguise was torn apart, revealing the dirty inside. Tax evasion, contract problems, forcing artists, unfair competition, grass-eating rabbit. It's really an eye-opener. I used to think that Fengshan Entertainment was a good company. It turns out that they did so many shady things behind the scenes. Yu Yu loves me. Fortunately, my Shen Yu got out of the quagmire early. With their attitude, they still have the nerve to say that Shen Yu became popular because of them. They should be thankful that they didn't drag her down. Bright starry sky, exactly. It's a rotten company from the root. That Ju Qing is also funny. He snatched Psy's resources, and he still has the nerve to criticize them every day. After this incident, whether it was Ju Qing, Fengshan Entertainment, or other people who had taken Shen Yu's resources, they all lost their popularity. The CEO of Fengshan Entertainment was also facing jail time because of the company's illegal activities. I heard some insider news that Fengshan Entertainment's accounts are not clean. The company's upper management has improper transactions with foreign companies. I'm afraid that this time, they will suffer a big fall. In the future, these people will not bully you anymore. Although he was happy, the manager felt a little complicated. He didn't believe that Shang Junlin was not the one who dug up such a deep inside story. Why would the head of the Shang group want to deal with Fengshang Entertainment? Other than Shen Yu, there couldn't be any other reason. You and CEO Shang, I don't think we are just playing around. If CEO Shang is just playing around with you, then there is no sincerity in this world. Even if he was Shen Yu's manager, he couldn't find any fault with CEO Shang. A person's sincerity could be felt. Shang Junlin's feelings for Shen Yu couldn't be more sincere. I'm asking you, what do you think? It's not easy to get away from someone like CEO Shang. When did I say that I want to get away? But the manager's words reminded Shen Yu that he and Shang Junlin should talk things out. Shen Yu picked up his phone and sent a message to Shang Junlin. Cute you, I said that I wanted to treat CEO Shang to a meal. Is CEO Shang free? The reply was almost instantaneous. CEO Shang, I am free. Where is the place? Shen Yu thought for a while and sent the address of his apartment. Cute you, do you want to try my cooking? CEO Shang, okay. Since he invited Shang Junlin, Shen Yu sent his manager to buy groceries. You have never been willing to cook by yourself. Why do you want to cook by yourself this time? The manager was puzzled. If I cook once, CEO Shang will cook for me in the future. Since I know how to cook, I should let CEO Shang try it. Shen Yu walked into the kitchen. He knew how to cook, but he didn't know how to cook many dishes. After he entered the entertainment industry, he cooked even less. I hope that my cooking skills haven't deteriorated. Don't worry. No matter how the food tastes, CEO Shang will eat it without batting an eyelid, the manager said angrily. The manager went out to buy groceries without complaint. Shen Yu cleaned up the kitchen. Shen Yu only knew how to cook when he was in the mood. After knowing what happened to Fengshang and Shang Junlin behind the scenes, Shen Yu was in a good mood. The manager came back with groceries soon. I've bought the groceries for you. I guess you don't want me to disturb the two of you. I'll go back first. If you need anything, just call me. Okay, I'll give you a big red packet during the new year. After the manager left, Shen Yu saw that it was almost dinner time. He took out the apron at home, put it on, and started to cook. When he was halfway through, the doorbell rang. Shen Yu went to open the door. Shang Junlin stood outside the door in a suit. When he saw Shen Yu's appearance, he was stunned for a moment. The young man was wearing home clothes and an apron. He had a strong aura of life. Shang Junlin felt that Shen Yu was waiting for him at home. He couldn't help but feel a throbbing in his heart. CEO Shang, why are you looking at me? Come in. As he spoke, he stepped aside to make it easier for Shang Junlin to enter the house. After entering the house, Shang Junlin smelled a strong fragrance. You can cook. A little, Shen Yu said. CEO Shang, why are you here so early? The dishes aren't ready yet. Since you're here, CEO Shang, let's cook together. Okay, what do you want me to do? Shen Yu thought that Shang Junlin more or less knew how to cook. Who would have thought that this man, who had always been successful in business, was really clueless when it came to cooking? Shen Yu had to send him to wash the vegetables. After washing the vegetables, Shang Junlin walked to Shen Yu. I'm done. You, what else do you want me to do? In fact, there wasn't much for Shang Junlin to do. However, the man didn't want to leave. Shen Yu had no choice but to let him help by his side. The two worked together to cook a table of dishes. Shen Yu directed the man to bring the dishes to the table. My culinary skills are not as good as those of other chefs. I hope CEO Shang doesn't mind. After sitting down, Shen Yu looked at Shang Junlin, who was sitting obediently at the table like a dog waiting for its owner to call for dinner. Shen Yu picked up a few dishes for him with his chopsticks. I worked hard for a few hours to make this. CEO Shang, try it. Shen Yu was being modest when he said that his culinary skills weren't good. If he really wasn't good, he wouldn't have shown his culinary skills. The dishes on the table emitted a tempting aroma. They tasted good and looked good. Yu's cooking is better than anyone else's. Shang Junlin's tone was serious. He didn't say it to please Shen Yu, but he really felt so. CEO Shong, no matter how nice your words are, I won't cook for you every day. Shen Yu poured red wine for the two of them. He put one of the glasses in front of Shong Junlin. However, if CEO Shong is willing to be my boyfriend, I can cook for you occasionally. Shong Junlin's heart skipped a beat. He held Shen Yu's hand. His eyes were deep. I'm very greedy. What I want is not only the title of boyfriend, but also a legally recognized relationship that will never be separated. CEO Shong, you want to marry me? Shen Yu was stunned. This was something he had never thought of. A few years ago, the country opened the policy of allowing same-sex marriage. However, there weren't many same-sex couples who actually went to register for marriage, especially those who had a big family like Shong Junlin. Shen Yu himself had never considered marriage. Yes, I'm serious about a you from the beginning to the end. In this world, the only thing I want is a you. I wanted to bring it up at a formal occasion, but the man's expression was sincere. There was no trace of a joke. Shen Yu knew that because he had started it first, he only wanted to clarify the relationship between the two of them with Shong Junlin. However, what he didn't expect was that Shong Junlin already had a deeper plan in his heart. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bk50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, mbk50. CC. Chapter 291. Shen Yu looked down at the man. He could feel the anticipation and the nervousness hidden under the man's anticipation. If I don't agree, what do you plan to do? I'll ask you again after a while until you agree. Shong Junlin never wanted a moment of pleasure. He wanted to have it for a long time. Mr. Shong, are you so sure that I'll agree? Shen Yu narrowed his eyes. Then, will you agree? The man's tone had a hint of uneasiness. I can let you try it out first. If I'm satisfied, I'll agree. What do you think? What else could Shong Junlin think? He was already very satisfied that Shen Yu agreed to try it out instead of rejecting it outright. Okay, Mr. Shong, please get up. We haven't finished eating yet. Shen Yu stretched out his hand. Shong Junlin took it and stood up. For the rest of the time, Shen Yu was a little absent-minded. When he first developed a relationship with Shong Junlin, he didn't know that Shong Junlin was planning to get married. He was not even 25 years old now. If there were no accidents, he would become a married man soon. Shen Yu smiled at the thought of his marriage partner being Shong Junlin. It didn't seem to be a bad thing. After the meal, Shen Yu instructed Shong Junlin to clean up the dishes. There was a dishwasher at home, so Shong Junlin didn't have to do it himself. Mr. Shong, do you want to stay today? Shen Yu leaned against the kitchen door and asked the man who was busy in the kitchen. In order to make it easier for him to move, the man rolled up his sleeves to his elbows, revealing his smooth forearms. Shen Yu knew how strong his arms were. After all, he had personally experienced it. Hearing Shen Yu's question, Shong Junlin's hands paused for a moment. I'd love to. Shen Yu chuckled. He walked over and hugged the man's waist from behind. Mr. Shong, how do you feel on your first day with a boyfriend? Shong Junlin dried his hands and turned around to hug Shen Yu. It feels good. It would be better if we could do this every day in the future. Even Mr. Shong has to do housework every day. Shen Yu was held in the crook of the man's arm as if he was holding a child. He looked down at him. Yes, you doesn't have to do anything. Just do what you like. I'll do everything else. Shen Yu was very satisfied with this answer. She lowered her head and kissed the man's forehead. A reward from my new boyfriend. Shong Junlin carried her out of the kitchen and into the bathroom. He placed her on the sink and kissed her. Shen Yu responded enthusiastically. The two of them hadn't been intimate for a long time. Once they started, they couldn't stop. Shen Yu never gave in to himself. He did whatever he wanted. The shower was turned on and the hot water poured down, soaking their clothes. The hot air filled the room and everything in the mirror became blurred. Shong Junlin hugged the young man and whispered in his ear, you, look back. Shen Yu turned his head and saw himself and Shong Junlin in the mirror. The young man's face was flushed and his eyes were filled with tears. There was a touch of crimson at the corners of his eyes, which was extremely attractive. You is so beautiful, Shun Yu heard the man's low and hoarse whisper. Shun Yu suddenly withdrew his gaze and a low moan came out of his throat. The sound of the water splashing and the young man's sobbing voice and the man's gentle coaxing could be faintly heard. When Shun Yu was carried out, he had no strength. However, the night was still long. After this time, Shun Yu clearly realized how restrained Song Junlin was the first time. When he woke up, the bedroom was dark. The curtains were tightly closed to create a comfortable sleeping space for the people in the bedroom. Shun Yu felt like his body was run over by a car. He was in pain everywhere. Memory, he stretched out a hand from the quilt with difficulty and touched the phone on the bedside table. Shun Yu turned on the phone and looked at the time. It was almost 12 o'clock. There were several missed calls and unread messages on his phone. They were all from his agent. Shun Yu opened the messages and saw that there was nothing important, so he replied with a message. The bedroom door was pushed open. Shun Yu heard the noise and looked up. He saw Song Junlin walking in with a glass of water. You're awake. Drink some water to moisten your throat. Song Junlin walked to the bedside and helped Shun Yu up and held him in his arms. With Song Junlin's help, Shun Yu drank the glass of water and felt that his throat was not so uncomfortable. Sorry, I lost control last night. Song Junlin's tone was gentle and he looked satisfied. Shun Yu glared at him and snuggled back into the quilt. You can't kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. Song Junlin knew that he was angry, but he did not get angry. He gently coaxed him. It's your boyfriend's first day. I was too excited. It won't happen again. Don't be angry. Shun Yu was not angry because of this. After all, he was partly responsible for last night. After Song Junlin coaxed him for a while, he changed the topic. Song Junlin did not go to the company that day. Instead, he accompanied him in the apartment. He had an important meeting the next day, so he left reluctantly. Shun Yu walked Song Junlin to the door. Seeing that he was not very happy, he raised his head and kissed him on the lips. Mr. Song, you have to work hard so that you can support me in the future. Song Junlin hugged Shun Yu's waist and deepened the kiss. After a while, Song Junlin left. Shun Yu stood by the door and touched his lips. Thinking about the time he spent with Song Junlin yesterday, he felt that it would be good if they could stay like this in the future. Shun Yu's agent got the news and came to look for him with the work plan for the next year. As soon as he walked in, he noticed the red marks on the neck of the young man who was nestled on the sofa and his rosy complexion. Don't tell me that you and Mr. Song fooled around for a day and a night. The agent had a complicated expression. Even if you are still young, you can't withstand such. Can an adult's mind not be so dirty? Shun Yu interrupted the agent angrily. Look at the marks on your neck. Fortunately, you don't have any work to do during this period. Otherwise, you will be on the hot search list every day. The agent poured 2 glasses of water and handed one to Shun Yu. Then, he sat on the other side of the sofa. Shun Yu held the glass in silence. He later checked his body. It could be said that he was in a terrible state. There were all kinds of marks on his body. Not to mention the places that couldn't be covered by his clothes, there were even more places that were covered. It was only at home that he was too lazy to cover up. It's not that I'm talkative, but if the matter between you and Mr. Song is leaked, it will be very unfavorable for you. Having been in this circle for a long time, the agent knew better than anyone that news like this would often have a great impact on the weak side. He didn't want Shun Yu to be hurt because of this matter. Mr. Song said that he wants to marry me. Hearing this sentence, the agent almost spat out the water in his mouth. He swallowed the water in his mouth with difficulty and said in disbelief, "Marry? You are only 25 years old. Why are you getting married?" The agent instantly exploded, as if he was an old mother who had been cheated of her child. Don't be so agitated. I haven't agreed yet. Shun Yu slowly drank a mouthful of water. Without waiting for the agent to relax, he continued, however, it should be soon. You can start preparing. Preparing for what? Of course, it was something that was public. The agent couldn't bear this blow. He didn't understand how in just one day, Shin Yu and Shang Junlin had developed to the point that they were going to get married. Let's not talk about this first. What is Xin Yao's arrangement for me next year? In order to prevent the agent from getting too agitated, Shin Yu took the initiative to change the topic. Speaking of business, the agent reluctantly calmed down. He was very satisfied with Xin Yao's arrangement for Shin Yu. However, when he thought that it was because of Shang Junlin, he felt very dissatisfied. After the new year, Shin Yu immersed himself in his busy work. Shin Yaro gave Shin Yu an endorsement for a big foreign brand. Shin Yu flew abroad for more than a month and even made a cameo appearance in a veteran singer's new MV. Without Fengshang Entertainment's interference, and with Shang Junlin's protection, Shin Yu's stardom skyrocketed. In the new year, Shin Yu was very busy. Shang Junlin was also very busy. The two rarely met up. However, no matter where Shin Yu was, as long as Shang Junlin was free, he would go to see him. In April, the promotion of Top of the Clouds began. As the lead actor, Shin Yu needed to follow the crew. Shang Junlin, who finally got to spend some time with Shin Yu, had to face separation again. Shin Yu knew that he was reluctant to part with Shin Yu. He kissed the man's cheek and said, "Why don't I accompany you to the company these few days?" Shang Junlin's response was to kiss Shin Yu excitedly. The next day, the people working at the headquarters of the Shang Group found that their CEO had brought someone with him. However, this person was very mysterious and no one knew his identity. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin directly took the elevator to the top floor. The Shang Group was rich and imposing. The entire commercial building belonged to the Shang Group. The entire top floor was Shang Junlin's office area. Other than a few important people, ordinary employees would not come up. The entire office area was bigger than Xing Yaro's. The facilities were also more complete. There was an office, a lounge, a leisure area, everything. Shang Junlin took Shin Yu to walk around. Shin Yu was surprised to find that there was also a video room. In it was the latest film equipment developed by Sinew Technology. Shin Yu curiously took a few more glances. Sinew Technology was another investor of Top of the Clouds. Shin Yu looked at the equipment that was more advanced than the ones on the market and asked, "What is the relationship between President Shang and Sinew Technology?" Sinew Technology was a new company that had been established for less than 8 years. It had only been 3 years since it started from an unknown company. The boss behind the scenes was very mysterious. The outside world was very curious about its founder. However, every time Sinew Technology showed up, it was only the person in charge. Until now, no one knew who the real owner was. Sinew was established before I entered the Shang Group, Shang Junlin replied. Shin Yu realized that he was not surprised by this answer. It was as if to him, Shang Junlin should be so powerful and omnipotent. If that's the case, isn't President Shang the biggest investor of Top of the Clouds? No wonder President Shang could ignore the rule of not allowing visitors to visit me on set. I didn't mean to hide it from you. Shang Junlin caressed Shin Yu's face. Is you unhappy? No, my boyfriend is so powerful. I'm only happy. Shin Yu rubbed his face against the man's hand. Shang Junlin had a meeting in the morning. After settling Shin Yu in his office, he said, "If you're bored, you can ask Secretary Du to show you around. I'll wait for you here." Shin Yu refused. He knew how famous he was. If he went out for a walk, the news of him being here would be exposed. "I'll be back soon." In order to go back to the office to accompany Shin Yu, Shang Junlin pushed the meeting to an hour. After it ended, he handed the rest of the matters to the person in charge and returned to the office first. Everyone in the meeting room looked at each other. "President Shang, do you have something to do today?" It was not Shang Junlin's usual style to shorten the meeting time and leave as soon as it ended. "I heard that President Shang brought someone here today. It must be related to this person. Why didn't I hear that President Shang would bring someone to the company?" Okay, let's not talk about this. There are a lot of things waiting for us to do." When Shang Junlin returned to the office, he saw the young man sitting on the sofa at first glance. A faint sense of satisfaction rose in his heart. He couldn't help but think how good it would be if he could see Shen Yu in the office every day. Finished so soon? Shen Yu looked up when he heard the door open. It's nothing important. What's more, Song Junlin couldn't leave Shen Yu alone in the office for too long. Song Junlin had official business to attend to, so Shen Yu sat aside and played with his phone. Unknowingly, it was already noon. Song Junlin raised his wrist and looked at the time. Do you want to eat out or in the company? Let's eat here. Try what President Song usually eats. Song Junlin instructed Secretary Du to deliver 2 servings of food. After Secretary Du delivered the food, he quietly left. The food in the Song family was good. Shen Yu ate with satisfaction. Is there a charger? My phone is out of battery. Shen Yu looked at the dangerously low battery and asked. Song Junlin found a charger and took out a tablet. You can play with this for a while. The password is your birthday. I'm almost done with my work. I can go back in a while. Shen Yu turned on the tablet. Obviously, this tablet wasn't used by Song Junlin. There were very few things on it. Seeing the familiar Weibo icon, Shen Yu clicked on it. The homepage was full of his own posts. It seemed that President Song not only used Weibo, but also followed him. Shen Yu curiously clicked on the Weibo homepage. When he saw the name, he was stunned for a while. Yu Yu's first wife. He was very familiar with this ID. Since his debut, this ID had always been with him. Was this person actually Song Junlin? Shen Yu felt that it was incredible. After browsing Weibo for a while, Shen Yu was almost certain that Yu Yu's first wife was really Song Junlin. An indescribable emotion welled up in his heart. Reason told him that he shouldn't disturb Song Junlin at this time. However, Shen Yu couldn't help it. He wanted to do something. He took the tablet and walked behind Song Junlin. President Song, have you been following me for a long time? Song Junlin looked away from the computer screen. What's wrong? Shen Yu put the tablet in front of Song Junlin. President Song, is this the most successful case of chasing after a celebrity? Song Junlin laughed. He gently pulled Shen Yu into his arms. Indeed, I've already won a Yu's heart. President Song, you've always helped me out of selfishness, haven't you? Shen Yu lowered his eyes. It was hard to see the emotions in his eyes. Song Junlin gently pinched Shen Yu's chin and looked at him with deep eyes. I admit that I've had ulterior motives for a Yu since the beginning. Will a Yu be angry? He didn't know when this hurried glance had completely engraved this person in his heart. Before he fell in love with Shen Yu, Song Junlin scoffed at love and love at first sight. However, Shen Yu's existence told him that love was never controlled by reason. Falling in love was falling in love without any reason. The man's eyes were filled with deep love. Usually, Shen Yu could feel Song Junlin's love for him from his words and actions. He never doubted that Song Junlin loved him. Shen Yu wrapped his arms around the man's neck and looked at him seriously. I won't be angry. On the contrary, I'm very happy to know that the person I like has liked me for a long time. Song Junlin couldn't hold back anymore. He kissed Shen Yu's lips. This kiss was full of plunder and strong aggressiveness. It was firmer than before and couldn't be refused. After he was released, Shen Yu leaned on the man's shoulder and gasped. He felt the change in the man's body. Shen Yu leaned over to Song Junlin's ear and whispered, President Song, do you want to go to the lounge? The meaning of this sentence at this time was self-evident. Song Junlin's eyes instantly darkened. He stood up with Shen Yu in his arms and knocked open the door of the lounge. When the door was closed, the two of them were kissing. The manager found that Shen Yu and Song Junlin were even more clingy when they were together. He appeared between the two of them like a huge light bulb. The manager, who was exhausted, decided that if it wasn't for something important, he wouldn't disturb the two of them. Peak of the Clouds was scheduled to be released during the summer vacation. After it was released, the box office was very good. In just 2 days, it broke the record of the previous years. Peak of the Clouds and Shen Yu were on the hot search list almost every day. Shen Yu's outstanding acting skills were unanimously recognized. The praise on the internet was endless. Shen Yu's popularity increased again, and he was constantly invited to appear in the movie. On the first day of Peak of the Clouds, Shin Yu and Song Junlin went to watch the movie together. In the movie, the moment when the protagonist was in pain, Shin Yu felt his hand being held tightly. He pulled himself out of the movie and patted Song Junlin's hand to comfort him. He lowered his voice and said, "I'm fine. It's all in the movie." Fortunately, there were many sobs in the theater at this time, so no one noticed them. After watching the movie, Song Junlin's mood was still very low. Shin Yu had to comfort him. Song Junlin was comforted, but his waist was also crippled. After washing up, Shin Yu was held in Song Junlin's arms. "You, come back to the Song family with me this year, okay?" Shin Yu was very sleepy. He just didn't want Song Junlin to disturb his sleep, so he just answered. When he woke up the next day, he found that there was an extra ring on his finger. "President Song, does this count as acting first and reporting later?" Shin Yu waved his hand with the ring on it. Song Junlin hugged the young man from behind. "Does you agree? I put it on, so it's mine. What about the other ring?" Shin Yu lowered his head and looked at the ring on his finger. He didn't know when Song Junlin ordered it. The size of the ring was just right, and the design was not complicated. Shin Yu liked it very much. Song Junlin took out the other ring. Shin Yu saw his initials engraved on the inner wall. Under the man's expectant gaze, he put it on for him. "From now on, President Song is mine alone. Yes, it will always be a use." That year, Shin Yu's love life was a double success. Top of the Clouds was nominated for the Gold Award, and Shin Yu won the Best Actor award with his outstanding acting skills. During the award ceremony, Shin Yu went on stage to receive the award. The sapphire cufflinks on his wrist reflected a mysterious light. There was a lot of jubilation on the internet. Today is also a day to scream crazily for Yu Yu. His clothes are so handsome. Is there a brand that will claim the dress? So handsome, so handsome. I'm licking the screen crazily. Did anyone notice Yu Yu's cufflinks? It's a pair of rare gemstones. Some big shots took it away. They said that it was the finale of an auction, and it was bought by the Song Corporation. After the award ceremony, Shin Yu posted on Weibo to announce his relationship with Song Junlin. Soon, this Weibo post was reposted by Song Junlin and the Song Corporation's official Weibo accounts. Weibo exploded. One after another, Shin Yu was trending. The news that had been suppressed before was also released one by one. The netizens dug out the sweets from the news. "I announce that I'm KDL, it's too sweet. Sob sob sob. Sisters, did you see that? It turns out that Yu Yu's first wife is President Song. President Song has been secretly watching Yu Yu for a long time. The people on the set of Top of the Clouds said that when President Song visited Yu Yu on set, he was always with Yu Yu. Yu Yu was the main focus of everything. If you don't believe me, look at the link. Link attached." After receiving the award, Shin Yu announced their relationship in a high-profile manner. After that, he didn't hide it anymore. Fans could often see the two of them showing off their love on Weibo. At the end of the year, Shin Yu went to visit the Song Corporation with Song Junlin. The Song Corporation's people liked Shin Yu very much. Shin Yu's mother was also a fan of Shin Yu. It could be said that Shin Yu was the favorite of the Song Corporation. On New Year's Eve, Shin Yu stayed up with the Song Corporation's people. "Do you want to watch the fireworks?" The Song Corporation's old house wasn't in the main city. Every winter, they could see large-scale fireworks. When Shin Yu and Song Junlin came to the courtyard, the fireworks had already started. The beautiful flowers bloomed in the sky, illuminating the night sky as bright as day. Song Junlin lowered his head and kissed Shin Yu's lips. They would spend the rest of their lives together. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.bk50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, mbk50. CC. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.